start recording, start streaming, and oh no. It's connecting with you. We are live. Just a second. Okay, switch the screens. Come on. Come on, switch the screens. There's like 30 seconds delay, I think, something like that. I can always do it without live, but 1 minute live, and it's streaming like shit. That's the problem. There you go. Boom. That's it. You're on, buddy.
What's going on?
Sitting in my kitchen, locked up in the house, doing, what everyone else is doing.
How long has your gym been closed for?
Since March 16.
March 16.
Yeah.
All right, so that's a Tuesday. When COVID started happening, how did you hear about it? Was it through the news or social media or mandate from the government? Or?
Oh man, when did I hear about it? I don't remember, to be honest. I started hearing it about this long time ago. I don't remember.
For us, it was like. Well, first, like my fiance, like ended up on a subreddit in January, and like she started really, really like getting into it. But we went to Europe. We went to Amsterdam and London to do tournaments. And the day before I left, or 2 days before I left for Amsterdam, we were having the Arnolds the same weekend as Amsterdam tournament. The Arnolds, we had like 1,150 people signed up at that point, with a day left in registration. And the Ohio, because the Arnold's happened in Columbus, Ohio.
Yeah.
The Ohio governor, DeWine, came out and said he was canceling the trade show, and he was canceling like spectators from entering the Arnold's, because of the 200,000 people that go to the Arnold Sports Festival, they come from 80 countries. So I think he was a little. He didn't like the idea of 80 countries coming into Ohio, merging at nightclubs and restaurants and at a trade show with all this stuff anyways that came from China in the first place. So he canceled it all. And it started that was the moment that I realized it was going to hit us. And then a week later, when I was at the London British Museum, it's like a free museum, they're big National Museum in London, and I remember getting a direct message on Facebook from my European director that Ireland had just locked down the country, and that like all event gatherings over 100 people were canceled. And then like 10 minutes later, while still in the museum, he told me the same thing happened in Geneva, because we were having this big tournament in Geneva, Switzerland. It was like sponsored by the government of Switzerland. It was like a free venue, free medics. Like they were getting us sponsors, and they were like, you can still have the event. However, you can only allow people to sit down in the event. No one can be standing at the Switzerland tournament. Everyone has to be sitting, and there has to be a seat between everyone sitting. And I was like, I don't know if I can have that type of tournament. Like, and eventually, anyways, like we were thinking about having that tournament still, but a week later, the Swiss government was like, nah, never mind, let's just cancel it. So that was the point where I started realizing like stuff of mine was going to get affected. And then also between Ireland and Switzerland, they were the first two events to actually be completely canceled. And then it just started, like, it just snowballed effect, right? Like 47 events canceled so far, including our free world championship. We canceled that on Monday this week, just because I can't put like 5,000 people in a venue and have them not catch COVID, most likely.
Yeah. That your thing about how did it come to you, the world championships for free?
So the idea of having a free champion, you have to start with the title, right? World championship.
Right.
So no one can have a world championship. Let's be honest about it. The only person that has a legitimate world championship is the IBJJF. Like, we all know that. Anyone who does jiu-jitsu first half seriously or knows anything about jiu-jitsu knows that the IBJJF is the one that gets to have the world championship.
Right.
Everyone knows that. And then if anyone else tries to have a world championship, it's not really a real world championship as much as it is something to have your kids call themselves world champions. So we knew that, like, as the number 2 like tournament right now, because we really believe that we surpassed the shit out of NAGA and other brands like the UAE Jiu-Jitsu Federation. So, but we also acknowledge that we haven't surpassed IBJJF. To surpass the IBJJF, you have to beat them on several other fronts, such as like outmatching them on a World Championships or Euros or something like that. So first, we knew that we were eventually going to have a World Championship. We knew, though, having a World Championship, we were not going to outbetter their prestige of their World Championship. And also, I had this fear of having a World Championship but only having like 200 people show up, which would be fucking embarrassing, right? Because when you think of a World Championship, you would think that hopefully at least 2,000 people, 3,000 people are going to come. So the first thing I thought is, I've always wanted to have a free tournament. Would it be possible to make the tournament free? We could use it as branding, and we could use it to really get the title of the World Championship out. But I'd also want to do it in a city where I could use the branding. So that's where Dallas came from. We were having the Europa Expo. We had the deal with the Europa Expo for Orlando, Dallas, and Phoenix to have the Jiu-Jitsu tournament part of their expo. So at first we were like, okay, we have a free venue. That's really good. We have a free venue for 3 days. We're in Dallas, which is great. The state of Texas is so big in jiu-jitsu, and it's a place where we're only getting bigger. But I really am looking for a huge boost in Dallas, especially Dallas, Austin area. So that was where it came from as well. And then the idea of making it free. So the idea of making it free is only foreign to people, because how do you pay for something that you know is going to cost you tons of money? So basically, to cover the Worlds, what we did was we already signed previous sponsors for the Worlds, so that made up a few $1,000s, not very much. But what we were doing is I would say 98% of Grappling Industries events are successful or very profitable. So what we started doing was we started putting money aside from all our events starting in January. So in January, like if an event would make 10 grand, 20 grand profit, we would put 2-4 grand aside. And we started putting money aside into like a savings account to pay for this World Championship. And that was all. That was the entire idea. We were basically going to invest profits back into a tournament that we could give to everyone that we felt was going to be a big enough tournament as far as branding to really reach everyone.
Yeah, man. COVID screwed everyone up. Hey, listen. Some people when I told people that I'm going to speak to you on a podcast, they're like, "Who's David Aguzzi? This and that." I'm like, "Dude, like Grappling Industries, right?" I was like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah. It's like one of the largest tournaments in Toronto, right?" Yeah. Oh, yeah, 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 yeah. I'm like, "You've seen that guy, that bum-looking kind of guy, walks around with a microphone on the floor with a baseball hat on." They're like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's the guy." It's like, "Really?" Yeah, yeah, yeah. So tell us, and people that don't know you, people don't know much about Grappling Industries. How did you start? How long? How many years ago? Like 10 now? Something like this? Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah,
or something like that. I hate GoFundmes and stuff like that. Raise money through some type of entrepreneurship. So I held a jiu-jitsu tournament, and originally I was going to use all that money to go to Euros. My brother gave me plane tickets through points. So since I didn't need all the money, I also said I would give half the money.
uh-huh. What year was that? What year was that? Yeah, 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 yeah. You had like what, three or four, yeah, four in Toronto, something like this. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Of course. Yeah, yeah. Oh yeah. Hmm. Hmm. I think I remember that. Yeah. Seth is still with you, eh? Full blast, right? No. Yeah. Yeah. Most of the time. But still, you did the right thing. It's a good try because I remember you have to try it. I remember when Fernando started doing Ontario Open here. What the best thing he did? He literally went in person to every single gym locally and rolled. And he invited everyone. He made 30-second speech about it. Whatever year it was, 2009, something like this, 2008. And he rolled with people that are better than him, and his ass got handed to him a few times. Like I was a witness of that stuff, but he didn't give a fuck about it. He's like, he would still invite everyone. He's like, this is the tournament. It's going to be one of the best, and arguably it's the best tournament in Canada at the moment. He gets 2,000+ people in it, and he runs it very smoothly. Well, forget about previous one. There are no washrooms or change rooms.
And also, it was local for him in a way. Like, he was living in Toronto now, so this is like local to him compared to us being like, okay, Seth, go to Oklahoma City and roll with everyone in Oklahoma City and convince them of Grappling Industries. Even when I did it in Seattle, it's just not the same. There's something about you leaving your home city and going to another city and trying to do the same thing. It's tricky for some reason. Like, although I think so highly of Fernando, I think if Fernando, for instance, goes to like Boston or Virginia Beach and he tries to do the whole press touring thing and rolling with everyone again, he'd find different results from how we found in Toronto. I just don't think it works as well in the States.
No, see, you don't just think, because you tried.
Yeah, like one thing that really took me off guard too was we thought that after we had really made it in the East Coast, we had big New York tournament. We had that super fight between Keenan Cornelius and Gordon Ryan, the no time limit match. Yeah. And we thought, okay, this got us the branding we need in the States to go to the West Coast. The moment we got to the West Coast, I lost money on 10 of the first 11 shows. And I had never lost money on a jiu-jitsu tournament in my life at that point. So I was like a perfect for like 125 events in a row. And then we go to the West Coast, 10 out of 11 shows, lose money. And like lost money, I'm talking about like $5,000 here, $7,000 here. Like, I mean, first Vegas event, like 37 competitors. I had less competitors in Las Vegas on my first Las Vegas tournament than I did on that charity event in Montreal in 2011.
37. So, I've never heard that before.
Yeah, so 37 competitors. It was one of the worst moments of my life as a promoter.
And you still ran it.
We still ran that one, yeah. I mean, and not only did we run it, we didn't set up 2 rings or 3 rings. We set up the entire 12-ring production.
Holy shit.
Yeah, we set up everything. Because the thing I was thinking about is, at least if we fucking got to show them what we can offer, then maybe it'll get bigger next time. Yeah. Same thing in San Jose. First San Jose-San Francisco tournament, 65 competitors. First Seattle tournament, 60 competitors. Like, these are big jiu-jitsu epicenters. Like getting those numbers is really embarrassing. But, man, like, Vegas now for us is 250. San Jose now for us is 400. Seattle is now, like, 275. Like, so we've gotten there. Like, we started the snowball effect. We took the losses on the first event, but we showed them what we had, and every time we came back, it got bigger and bigger. And I don't know. I can't tell you the metrics behind it, but it worked. So I got lucky with that, to be honest.
How many events per year do you have right now? What, like 140, I think, last year?
Last year, 141. This year, we were on pace for 185. And then it got evaporated, clearly. Like, the thing is, like, so... For the difference is, like, this year we were really going to blow up Europe, right? Like, the European production was really going to travel around Europe and just collect as many events as possible. Already this year we had opened up Austria and Denmark and Switzerland, like I was saying before. And we were going back to different cities and different places. Like instead of going to Barcelona, we were about to go to Madrid. Instead of going to Rome, we were going to go to Milan. We were going to add the eastern part of Europe. And like we were talking sometimes in private too, we were trying to always figure out Russia, even though Russia has its own complexities. But yeah, we were going to get to 185 this year. 185 was to go. Since we're not going to do it this year, we'll do it next year, I guess. Hopefully.
You'll be fine. You will.
Yeah.
Tell people more about the stories, because I know they're sitting and just drooling on this stuff, and they will be listening later. Whoever, 150 people maybe.
Once I get in there, we'll boost it to like 1,500 people.
Yeah. So listen.
We'll email it out.
Remember the days when you were, the sanctioning times, and like you weren't working with OJA or nobody else.
So I do have a story about this stuff, actually, if you want. So I was actually thinking about it yesterday when I was getting mad for no reason. So I get mad for no reason these days because there's nothing to do and there's no work. So I lose productivity, and then I just like sit there and look into the abyss, and I'm just like, fuck. But I remember, because I was telling this story on another podcast about when I had lost, actually, when we were just talking about losing money on 10 out of 11 shows, when I had expanded to the West Coast. After that 11th show, someone stole my East Coast trailer.
Yeah, so I remember that.
I had no fucking money. I just bought this West Coast production, and I invested everything in that, and I was losing whatever it was, 5 to 10 grand a week on shows, and I had this like 75 grand investment, and then the 75 grand got stolen from this trailer. It was like a really fucking shitty time. I think that's been the only time in the history of Grappling Industries like I was scared, to be honest. Like I've never been scared. Like I'm not scared right now. During COVID, like we're not scared at all. We have enough reserves that we can last like this for like another year and a half if we have to, which we're probably not going to have to need. We'll probably be up and running by July or August. But we just started we're down all this money from losses from the stolen truck, and I had this Toronto event coming up in November. And it was really important for me to manage to get to the Toronto event. Toronto was one of the cities where we were existent in. We had a crowd. We knew that we could make money on that show, and we could reinvest that profit. And 500 people signed up for that Toronto event. So it was going to be really good. Between us and your listeners, I guess like a crowd like that is probably going to generate a profit of like 30 grand, let's say. So we were going to invest that 30 grand into an event, into our future events, and try to off balance like the losses we had from the stolen trailer or from the West Coast disaster that I was living at that moment. But just earlier, everyone in Toronto had stopped doing tournaments, because earlier that year in 2017 in Montreal, they had the whole Abu Dhabi tournament got shut down by the police. Article 83 of the criminal code became a huge thing. Jiu-jitsu was made illegal in Quebec. And at that moment in Ontario, it wasn't illegal yet, but it was illegal. So the OJA couldn't have tournaments. The OGA couldn't have tournaments. And technically, Grappling Industries were not allowed to have a tournament. But fuck you guys, I was going to have a tournament.
Yeah, I remember.
And I was going to build this company back up. And we got up to I think 10 days before that tournament, and I received a Facebook message. And I'm going to go into the details of this right now. I don't care if someone gets pissed off about it. But Jesse Richardson sent me a message. And he was kind of a fucking dick. And he was basically saying, your event's illegal unless you join the OGA and Rohit as the sanctioning body for your event. And I was like, okay, cool, man. Listen, I'm not really interested. And a day later, he's like, trust me, you have to do this. So he's really popping up into my inbox right now, like every day, Jesse Richardson. Nothing from Rohit. Rohit doesn't say shit. He just has Jesse doing it, even though Rohit later said that Jesse's not in charge. I mean, why do you have Jesse sending everyone Facebook messages? It wasn't just me that he had sent a Facebook message to. So now we're the week before the tournament, and it's Monday morning. I get a call in the morning. It's Ryerson University. Ryerson University has told me that the police are in the office. Like, they're in the office right there, being like, what is this jiu-jitsu tournament you guys are having on Saturday? And they're like, well, it's this guy David Aguzzi from Montreal. He has jiu-jitsu tournaments here every year, like multiple times a year. They're like, oh, well, it's kind of illegal. So we'll have to talk to the legal department of Ryerson University. So Ryerson and the police talk it out, and they decide they're going to let my tournament slide. It's cool. It's going to happen. This is where Rohit shows up in the story. Rohit just flips the fuck out, right? So he calls the police. He calls everyone in the police force until he gets the top guy, and he demands that they shut this down right away. I have the emails all saved. He refers to us having a jiu-jitsu tournament in Toronto at the time as like dog fighting, because there's no sanctioning. So we'd be allowing dog fighting in a way.
Rohit said it?
I have the emails, dude. I can't make this up. He used the word dog fighting. And the police were like, listen, we'll investigate even further. And the police still decided that they would allow it to happen. So Rohit gets even more pissed. So he reaches out to the Ministry of Tourism, right? And he's like, listen, these guys are going to break the law. Like, you have to shut them down. So the ministry calls Ryerson themselves, and Ryerson tells the ministry, look, we talked to the police. We talked to the head detective and everything. It's fine. They said it was fine. Eventually, they were able to persuade Ryerson to really take some action. So basically, it's now Friday morning. I have the truck loaded in Montreal, and I'm driving down through a snowstorm to get to Ryerson. I don't know if I have an event tomorrow or not. I have 500 people, 500 spectators coming as well. And my heart's pounding the ote. So first, Ryerson asked me to change the insurance certificate. It's 3 o'clock. The insurance company that I work with closes at 4. I get a hold of them. They're able to change the insurance certificate. Cool. Then Ryerson at 4 o'clock drops the bomb on me. I don't know if you remember this, but no podium, no backdrop, no giving out medals, no brackets on the wall. You can't raise winners' hands.
Yeah.
The referee has to back off and point to a winner. And then also you have to make 2 of your mats smaller than the rest of the mats. And I'm like, what the fuck is this shit, guys? And supposedly Rohit still told the police and told Rohit, from my understanding from Chris, who runs Ryerson Sporting and the venue bookings, he told me that Rohit was going to show up with the media and the police on Saturday. So
that was the rumor.
Cool.
I heard that too. That was the rumor.
Yeah, that was a rumor. So I was expecting it too, because I couldn't wait to go see them. I was like, hey, Rohit, what do you think of the event? But yeah, they tried so hard to shut me down. And then after the event that night, people were on the internet complaining about these protocols that were put in place, like not raising the winner hand, not having the backdrop, not having medals. And some people were really pissed. Some people were understandable. But Jesse Richardson was out there really like laying into me until midnight comes along, and I show up on the internet, and I think from midnight until 3 a.m., me and Jesse on public forums just going after each other. But I mean, it is what it is. I know Jesse's liked by a lot of people in Toronto. I don't know if you like him or whatnot. I think he's a fucking dick, to be honest. I think he's a low-level, small potato dick. So it is what it is. He might be a nice guy. He might not be, but he crossed me the wrong way, so that's why I think he's a dick. I think Rohit's a dick too. I mean, I would reach out to Rohit, to be honest. I would reach out to Rohit a year later and say, hey, is it possible to us to work together? But how would we work together? Because we're so different in such a way. And Rohit's reply to me was like, oh, what do you want? But it was like, what do you want? Like, why are you bothering me?
That's it, eh?
Yeah, and I was like, oh, you know what? With that type of tone and that type of like way that you want to approach this, like you should be in business. There's like a theory of mine where it's like you always got to be professional, right? Like the money comes before your rivalry, right? If we can make money together, we should make money together instead of having a rivalry together, because this way we both benefit instead of like one of us going down. So I was willing to make that step. Hey, let's work together. And he was just, at that moment, I could tell like the thing is, I've never felt like he cared about jiu-jitsu. I've always felt like he just wanted the quickest way out, or every time he tries to do something, it doesn't really work. Every time he says he'll deliver something, he doesn't really deliver it. So at that point, I was just like, okay, whatever. And you know what? Like, that's when I started working, because at that point, it was mandatory that you get sanctioning, right? Like this whole debacle proved to me, okay, I got to get sanctioning. And, like I didn't have a great past with Tony Isaacs. Like no one, me or Tony, can't say that we got along. Like the first time I ever met Tony, I was 15 years old, 14 years old. We fought in a jiu-jitsu tournament. Me and Tony fought like 3 times in jiu-jitsu tournaments when I was 14, 15.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, we fought in Montreal the first time. I got him with a triangle. Then I fought him in Hamilton at the Jocelyn's tournament. I got him with a flying triangle off a single leg that time, and then I forget what happened the third time. I think it was an armbar from a triangle I got him with. But besides that, like, so we kind of knew each other from competing at the same tournaments and competing against each other, but I never really knew him like personally. And then like when the OJ was doing their tournaments and Grappling Industries was coming into Toronto, I was always trying to make rivalries so that people would take notice of Grappling Industries. I was always trying to compare Grappling Industries to the biggest names in a region so that people would notice Grappling Industries. I don't think that their tournaments were no good. Clearly they have good tournaments in the OJA, the Bravado tournament, the Ontario Open, the Nationals. They're all good tournaments, man. They're not bad. These tournaments can actually do really well anywhere if they package the whole thing up and brought it on a tour. But we never got along for that reason. And then we started working together for the OJ Grappling Industries events. And to be honest, I have to say that Tony's a stand-up guy, man.
Oh, yeah.
I work hard those weekends, and Tony works just as hard. He says he'll promise the referees, he gets the referees. He says he'll get you the insurance tomorrow, he gets you the insurance tomorrow. He says something, he does it, and I really respect that, because it wasn't like that at the with Rohit, and it wasn't like that with a lot of other people I've tried to collaborate with over the years. So I actually really have come to respect Tony for that. And
no,
respect
I'm telling
everyone.
you, I know Tony for quite a few years. My first experience with him was also Jocelyn's, I think 2006 or something like that. And he was a referee, and everyone was like, "He's a dick, man. He doesn't know how to score." He's like, "Yeah, see that black guy? He's a fucking dick. He has no idea how to score." And I'm like, I didn't understand anything that time. Like, I was a white belt. And,
but that's the thing. Like, you could call him a dick in the past for sure, but no one can deny that the guy loves jiu-jitsu.
Oh, that's what I'm saying.
Clear,
I'm like, I didn't even know the guy, and that was just my first experience. I didn't know him. I've never been introduced to him or anything.
Yeah.
But later within, because I started training like a motherfucker, right? And getting through belt to belt, and then started competing, and then I met him a few years ago. Yeah, he's and I know also information through Marco Costa, through other people. He's a hard working guy.
Yep.
And OJA and national team going to, the world, Olympic World Championships.
Sure.
JJIF World Championships. This is in large due to his work.
Yep.
No,
you're absolutely right. The one thing if I was to say anything bad about the OJ, and I've told Tony this, and it's not really a big complaint or anything like that, it's that I'm not really fond of the whole JJIF or the really persuading ways behind the IBJJF. Like, clearly, like Tony is in love with the IBJJF. He's persuading for people to go to those tournaments, and I told him in the past, listen, I can't really push that agenda. I'm like the opposition, right? So that's the only argument I have, and clearly it's just business related. But no, he's definitely tried to put Canadian Jiu-Jitsu on the map, especially Ontario Jiu-Jitsu.
Man. I've spoken to him many times in person. I've seen what he does. I was very happy to hear when you finally started to work with him.
We wanted to do it a couple of years ago, and it would always be the same argument. It was like, listen, you have to have one tournament a year. And I was just, I was never cool with that. Like, I didn't have the distribution I have now, right? I didn't have Europe or national level distribution in the States. So just having one Toronto event, I didn't believe that all the competitors from 3 or 4 Toronto events would come to one Toronto event. I didn't believe that yet. I thought the profit made over 3 events or 4 events could outdo the profit of one event. And I always tried to tell them, listen, if you just allow us to do the 3 events a year, we're gonna crush the OGA. You're gonna collect all the members of Grappling Industries that aren't part of each of the memberships. Um, but it took a crazy sanctioning for that to happen. And I have complaints even to today. Like, they're not big deals because of the distribution now. Like, I can sleep on it. But like let's take for example, if we're talking about Ontario Jiu-Jitsu, like next gen, like. I don't have a problem with George Breed or anything like that. Like, George is a cool guy. I know he doesn't like round robin. He's told me a million times, but he's also told me he respects the fuck out of what we've done with it. But like, he has like next gen Toronto, next gen Ottawa, next gen Niagara.
Yep.
That to me sounds like more than one event. But anyone who knows or understands how the OJA is run with Tony, like, that you have to get a gym to like authorize your membership and stuff like that. So like, he convinced a couple of gym owners to drop their tournaments and go under the branding of Next Gen. So I'm not a fan of it, but at the same time, he was within the rules. George was, so that's cool. But I think we can agree George might be somewhat cool and very tolerable, but Josh, I don't have anything to say about Josh.
Why not? You're known for big mouth. So
no, I used to be known for big mouth. Josh does his thing the way Josh wants to, right? Like, I question if Josh could have built what he built without the help that he receives. I question Josh's motives because Josh is the type of guy one day to tell you something and then 2 days later to like piss on you, right? Like Josh came to that Toronto tournament we were just talking about, and he was like, wow, this is a great tournament. I really like it, all this type of stuff. At night, he went on the internet, was like, that's the shittiest fucking tournament I've ever been to. It was garbage, and he just bashed it. So it is what it is, man. I don't really have very much to say about the guy or his weight or where his money came from or why people want to hang out at his gym, even though it has nothing to do with it. But, I just think he's very two-faced. I think Claude Patrick has always called Josh Rapport two-faced, right? Because Claude Patrick has the most beef with him.
Not most.
But
people,
yeah, like I went to the
Josh.
Seattle tournament while I was press touring Seattle, and I went to the IBJJF Seattle event to press tour at that as well. And Josh was there, and I sat with him in the crowd for 20 minutes, talked to him. I thought everything was cool. A week later on the internet, he's talking shit again about me. So I've just come to realize, fuck that guy. I mean, if I see him in a crowd or I see him in public, don't go talk to him because he's not my friend. And whatever I tell him, he'll just probably find a way to use it against me. So it is what it is. That's the way jiu-jitsu is between some people. Like, everyone thinks you're cool because we have this common thing between us of jiu-jitsu, but it doesn't mean that we're cool, That's just the way it is. Josh will probably listen to this and be all pissed off and shit, but it is what it is.
Listen, this is open forum. We're talking honesty. One thing I always respected about you is you've been always straight up about everything.
Oh man, so the thing is that's the thing. Like, I don't want like the hate between me and Josh either. Me and Rohit. Like, look, in the big picture, Rohit and Josh don't affect my business anymore. Like, if they want to, they'll have to come to New York. They'll have to come to California. They'll have to follow us to Australia and London and meet us in Warsaw. I mean, like, it's a different time for us at Grappling Industries. Back then I only had myself and any friend that would help me run this tournament. Now there's 15 people working here full time. So I don't really care about the grudges anymore. Like I was saying about Tony, once you actually get to know the guy, he's actually really great. Well, that's awesome. but we're so wrapped up in these business exchanges that it causes like those rifts, like between me and Rohit, or like me and Josh, for example. It is what it is. But I'm not gonna say that they do shitty work all the time. I'm sure there's things they do really good at, and there's a reason why they're in the picture.
Well, listen, people. Not everyone can get along, right? It's impossible. It's a dream for everyone. It's like to get along. Oh my God, every business gets along. No, there is no way. There's nothing. It'll never happen. And you having beef with a couple of people in this world, which is for you, it's a very small percentage now. So what? You know what I mean?
There's a couple things.
And by the way, you still Toronto. I understood from speaking to you at the Toronto event. It's still your largest event yet. Not yet, but.
So now it's the third largest.
Third largest.
So now it's the third. So the Arnolds are number one now, just because of sheer size and Arnold Schwarzenegger and all that shit. Number two would be London. London is just blown up for us than Toronto. Then I would imagine maybe New York or Sydney.
London, UK.
Yeah, London, UK is it's really blown up for us. Like the last tournament, which was the last tournament we ran before COVID, it sold out like 6 or 7 days prior, but 16 mats sold out. So Toronto, we had 10 mats. We sold out like 9 or 8 days prior. London, we had 16 rings running, and we sold out 4 or 5 days, I believe, earlier in registration ending. So London is really, really, really big. Once you are able to get in touch with all these gyms, and you start to see how big it is.
What do you mean by getting in touch with all those gyms?
Well, it's just that like like when you're trying to have your first event, like I think every promoter does the same thing. We all go Google Jiu-Jitsu. Let's say Toronto. Jiu-Jitsu Toronto. And then we take all the names of each gym. We put it in an Excel list. Right. But between us, a lot of gyms don't have websites. A lot of gyms don't have Facebook pages. Who are these gyms? How do you find out about these gyms? And a good example of this is Austria. In Austria, there's tons of immigrants from the rest of Eastern Southern Europe, right? They all go to Austria, and a lot of these people open up these combat martial art gyms where they do sambo, wrestling, and some grappling and mixed martial arts. But they don't have a website. They don't have a Facebook page. Everyone in the gym is immigrants from the same region they're from. And thus they just somehow find out about your tournament, and they come to your tournament, and then the whole thing is fuck. I don't know where those guys came from. I got to find a way to keep in touch with them. So you're really eager to like meet the coach and be like, yo, how do I get in touch with you guys? Luckily, we've also been like storing emails for 10 years, so we have quite the email list now of jiu-jitsu competitors around the world. I think we have like 75,000 emails. 70,000 of which are still actually really good, because people like to put fake emails as well. So that's what I meant, I guess. Not every gym is as transparently visible as you think it is.
How's Europe going for you overall, besides London?
How's Europe?
Yeah.
So Europe, like I got a map in front of me. So Ireland is really great. Like really big events. I've sold out 2 events in Ireland so far. United Kingdom, really, really big. France is doing pretty good. In France, we've done Paris a couple of times, and we've done Lyon. We haven't done Marseille yet, but France, as far as Paris, has been really good. It used to be a hotspot for NAGA, so we've been trying to take that crowd away from NAGA and bring it to Grappling Industries. In France, it's kind of like a place where they don't want to pay too much for jiu-jitsu tournaments. So you got the whole learning lesson for us in Europe has been price, right? Finding the balancing point. Because later on when we went to Belgium or Austria, it was similar. It was like they think the price is too high, but they're okay with paying it. So the first thing we learned in Europe is we kind of want to stay on the northern part of Europe, not the southern part. The northern part seems to have a lot more money than the southern part. Southern part, I'm talking about Portugal, Spain, Italy, Greece.
It's heat. They're all lazy. because of heat.
So like we did like Lisbon in Portugal, for example. It was a failure. We fucked it up.
Really, and Europeans, IBJJF Europeans is probably the largest tournament.
Exactly. So it's probably their second now at Masters Worlds, right? Because Masters Worlds
I don't know. This year, 7 days, 9 a.m. till 8 p.m.
in Lisbon.
Yeah. All mats are busy.
And Lisbon is such a cool city, but I think the thing with the Euros is if you actually look at the competitor list, like 95% of it is not Portugal.
No, of course not.
Yeah, so that's kind of like the thing. So our counter to the Euros was going to come out. We should have been announcing it around now. Was going to be in October in Warsaw, Poland, the free Euros. Like, so we have a free Euros. There's going to be a free Euros in Poland of all spots.
Okay, listen, this is new idea. I just heard another one. You just announced it here. Like, free Euros, free Worlds. Okay, listen.
We were throwing money
at it. Okay, so you're honestly... Okay, so how old are you now, Dave?
33 and a half.
So you started when you were like 23, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, you were... Obviously, you understand. Now you're 33, you were 23, you remember yourself those days, you remember how, you wore those days.
Oh, yeah. No.
Right? You get what I'm saying. Now you have all this tremendous experience. You have, you started from few people on the mats in Montreal, and you moved on to bigger Montreal, you moved on to Toronto. Now you're all over the world. You run 140 fucking tournaments a year. Not many people can say. That's why I called you one of the most successful promotions in history, right?
No one promoted more tournaments than this last year. IBJJF was number 2.
Yeah, so like there you go. See, you even went past you passed IBJJF, which is most prestigious, promotion.
I still believe that too.
Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
There's still like another 5 to 10 years of work to get to opposition level. Like
the caliber. What we're talking about is the caliber. You have the quantity, but the caliber of fighters. They're still Worlds, Pan Ams, Euros. They're still over there.
No, I agree.
You know what I mean, right?
No, I 100% know what you mean.
So what, in your opinion, what do you think is true Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu World Championships, or let's call it true, grappling on the ground World Championships?
Man, so to be honest,
how do you get there? How do you get through, parade of, like, people are like, judo, freestyle wrestling, even sambo. Like Russian sambo, there is, and judo, there's a parade of countries, there's a big opening, and then you fight for a country. So what's your opinion on that? How do you see this happening? And I'm not talking about commercial side. Like commercial, yes, your guys are commercial promotions. I'm talking about countries. So you're Canadian.
Yeah, sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's a couple of things there to unpack. Like, first off, the biggest jiu-jitsu tournament you could ever throw that has eyes on it and it would declare a real world champion would be to have an Olympic Brazilian jiu-jitsu tournament.
Right.
The problem with this, and this is my big selling point on why it should never happen, because there's some detail we should talk about. Let's say there's 9 divisions in jiu-jitsu. Let's just say there's 9 weight divisions, right? Mm-hmm. In the Olympics, it would just be black belt. It's okay. So we have 9 divisions of black belts. There won't be a belt.
There's just weight. Yeah.
Yeah, so there would be, let's say, 9 weight classes. We're going to give out, 36 medals in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu at the Olympics, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Let's say there's no bronze medal fight. We give out 2 bronzes. 36 medals in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu at the Olympics. If we look at the last 5 years of the World Championships in California, of those 36 medals, how many medals went to Brazil?
Okay, I get it. Yeah.
Now, do you think that the Olympics would be cool with just giving out 32 to 33 medals to the country of Brazil, including 9 gold medals?
But there won't be 32, 33 because it's a single elim or the whatever it's called, What is it called?
Knockout or
Not
single
knockout,
elimination.
ricochet, whatever it's
Double
called.
eliminate. Yeah.
Like they fight, they give them a chance for a second fight or like third
But
place.
that's the problem. The problem is, like, of the 36 medals, there's going to be so many medals going to Brazil, especially if we run a gi tournament, the Olympics, that it would just be so lopsided on the medal rankings. And the medal standings is a thing in the Olympics, right? Brazil does pretty decent in the Olympics. I'm not even sure how Brazil does.
I disagree with you on this quite a bit. You know why? Because there have been many sports in the past that, well, and still are, like judo. Let's take judo, closest to us, right?
Yeah.
Japan dominated for
Yes.
years and years and years and years and years. It's their national sport. Karate and judo, it's their national sport, right? It takes time to develop the players in other countries. Look what happened in the 80s. All of a sudden, freaking Russians stepped up.
Yep.
And Europeans, Russians, they stepped up with all the techniques, grabbing the legs. So wrestlers walked in and sambo guys walked in. They're like, oh, listen, judo is very close to us. Guess what? We have sambo here, and sambo is mixed between judo and wrestling. And we're going to, look at the technique. We can grab legs and we can pick you up and slam you down. And, all of a sudden, the shift started to go the other way. Now look at judo. It's not just dominated by Japan.
No.
My point is here, it takes time. Yes, there is always going to be a dominating country. Absolutely. And Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which should be called Gracie Jiu-Jitsu in my opinion, because, it came, the difference came from Brazil, but it's really, why are you calling a country Jiu-Jitsu? Well, I don't understand, to be honest. That's why, everything with Keenan Cornelius these days, American Jiu-Jitsu, they're bitching at him. Well, he has a full right to call it because he's doing his own style, right?
Yeah.
Whatever people say, I don't really care, but I can see his point. So my point is here, people can come in. It's a ground jiu-jitsu tournament, and time will tell. And listen, first Olympics, Brazilians will dominate, 100%, guarantee it, 100%. First places will be most of divisions. First places will be Brazilians, but you can't.
Except for Mikey.
Well, Mikey, that's right. See, there you go. You just said it. You never know about Keenan. You never know. Like, let's call today's people. Mikey. Keenan, and Gordon. All of a sudden, will decide to put a fucking gi on.
No,
you never know what's going to happen with that dude.
Never gonna fucking happen.
Yes and no. If there is a pride of America, if there is a pride of a country behind him, you never know.
Knowing Gordon, he'll pitch for them to have a no-gi division.
He will.
Yeah. And, it's kind of fair, too. If you're going to have a gi division, are we going to say you have to have no-gi divisions in the Olympics as well?
Yeah, good point.
Do we have both?
Well, JJF was trying to push for it.
But
I think
the whole parading people around thing too. So the thing with judo and freestyle and Greco is there's some type of government country what's it called, funding basically. I know let's say you make the Canadian wrestling team, you're paid $40,000 a year from the wrestling federation under the Canadian Olympic Federation. So that exists. It doesn't exist in jiu-jitsu.
No.
There's no we have some good guys in jiu-jitsu in Canada, but we don't see them performing at all the big tournaments around the world because they run into that funding issue.
Yeah.
And without government funding, it doesn't enable them to do that either. So first, we're going to need to have government funding as well. And then, you were talking about commercial side of it, I think that's another thing in jiu-jitsu. There's just, every time you approach, sponsors and you're asking them for something 25 to 50 grand, a lot of the smart ones are oh, what's your broadcast numbers look like?
Yeah.
So although I've been lucky enough to persuade some people, give me 25 grand, and I've got a couple of sponsors that are within that range now, which is great because we're pitching them a lot in an annual year, right? So even though it's not that much compared to what we should get, they are kind of right to where there is no broadcast deal. I feel like broadcasting doesn't work in jiu-jitsu. We've seen it with flow grappling, and flow grappling's numbers are not as huge as you think they are. Like, no one's tuning in like to watch the same show all together. I don't think there's ever been a pay-per-view by itself in jiu-jitsu that has had over 5,000 people in it. And I know if you went with flow grappling, you might make $0 to like $1,000 for the production, and you might have to videotape it yourself. So there's all these types of problems where jiu-jitsu is keeping itself from going mainstream. Another thing is the rules suck in jiu-jitsu, man. Like, what I mean by that is, like, let's say basketball, we put the ball in the hoop. Hockey, we put the puck in the net. Soccer, we put the ball in the net. It's so easy to understand this, right? Like, you're going down a field or down a rink or an arena, and you're putting something in something. Yeah. Where in jiu-jitsu, you got these points, and then the IBJJF added this advantages thing, which I got rid of the moment I had any rationale, because I really hate advantages, to be honest. Like, refereeing jiu-jitsu is such a shitty job in the first place that trying to keep advantage score is really difficult as well. So just watching jiu-jitsu, it's really hard to understand what's happening. You know, you can already see it in MMA. Once they hit the ground, someone's like, oh, what are they doing on the ground? What's happening? Who's winning? Oh, stand them up, ref. To just get rid of all the striking of MMA and have them do a wrestling grappling match, it's not the same. It comes off really boring. And you can admit it, even as jiu-jitsu fans ourselves, it gets boring, you know? When we've watched 40 minutes of the same match in ADCC, it gets boring. So making it to ESPN with that is incredibly difficult. We're comparing ourselves with these cool-ass kids who are jumping 10 feet up in the sky and kicking boards, you know? At least I can understand that the board broke and the kid kicked it, you know? I can't understand the armbar from the close guard if I don't do jiu-jitsu. So I think broadcasting is the future of jiu-jitsu. Just how to make it available to the masses, I don't know.
I've said it from the very first days of me starting jiu-jitsu, you know, years ago, that our sport for a general spectator is extremely boring.
Yep.
And people don't understand what we do. Oh, well, look, two guys on the ground hugging each other, and they're like kind of moving a little bit. You and I know. Competitors know there's so much going on while we do that. But for a general spectator, when they look at it, it's like, that's boring. Click to another channel. Right?
So, but that's the thing. Like, it's so fun to do that we want to show it to everyone else. But it doesn't translate into being fun to watch, you know?
You're right, 100% right. And, you know, I know judo tournaments pack stadiums. I know freestyle wrestling. Dude, you go to any Russian event, freestyle wrestling, like I just spent 7 months last year in there.
Yeah.
And I hang out with wrestlers, and I watch the tournament, and then I watch tapes, and I watch TV. It just an average decent size Russian level tournament is 10,000 people in the stands.
Yeah.
And it's screaming. It's a screaming crowd. All the Dagestanis, all the Chechens, all the southern parts of Russia. It's their national sports, and it's exciting. It's how it is. It's like 3-minute rounds, and they're so fast. It's understanding. People understand that sport, and it's so old. Comes from Greece, right? All those pictures and sculptures, they show that stuff. And our sport, unfortunately, my take on this, if we wanted to make it to Olympics and we want to make a broadcast, flow grappling, like back and flow grappling. I don't know about their numbers, to be honest. I enjoy watching it. I enjoy what they do. I enjoy their podcast now. Who's number one they have right now.
Yep.
I enjoy, but I only enjoy it because I'm 100% in it. I have my own gym. I'm a black belt. I still compete. I'm an old fuck. It's interesting to me. But I put my wife next to me. She's gonna look at it. It's like, okay, I'm gonna go. I put my son next to me, who knows about jiu-jitsu. He lasts 2-3 minutes.
Yep.
So my take on this: rules is number one. It has to be 5 minutes matches or even 4 minutes matches, and bunch of stuff has to be removed.
Yep.
You know what I mean? That's my take on it. That's the only way we can get general public acceptance. And of course, we can run other tournaments with the existing rules. You know, no advantages. You know what I liked about JJIF? Oh no, hold on. ADCC rules or JJIF? The new rules with no pants grabbing. Who did this?
UAE.
UAE,
or AEJP, I guess, is their new name, or
well, let's call it by old name. UAEJJF.
Yeah.
They all those news like no advantages. You get minus point. You get 1 point, and you get penalties. If it's a penalty, it's a minus point. I like those a lot.
Yeah, I mean, those were cool rules when they added them, but I thought, like, it was still very late in the process, you know? I mean, Grappling Industries already got rid of advantages. We opened up the heel hook and the leg lock game,
Grappling
and we opened up
Industries
reaping.
is on a different level. Listen, Aguzzi, fuck. You came out of nowhere, and you created such a stir in the industry that hence many people hated you. When you... Hey, I'm one of your first sponsors in the old days. You know,
Oh, dude, I saw your stuff.
yeah, see, like it's when Michael Aviado, I remember, hey, this is Dave, like, there's such a great tournament, this and that. I'm like, I think when you messaged me, I think I messaged Aviado right away, or somebody, I think it was Mike Aviado, and I'm like, who's this David guy? And then I started looking into it, and immediately I answered, yeah, fuck yeah, something new. And you were brand new. You know what? You know why I did it, to be honest? Because I was brand new as well.
Yeah.
And you were new too. And I'm like,
Yeah.
of course I'll sponsor you. It doesn't cost me much. Those days, if you really think about remember those days when you really start from scratch?
Yeah.
Everything costs you a lot.
Yeah. No, for sure.
You know what I mean?
Like, even if it was 5 T-shirts, I mean, you spent money on those 5
I spent money on those. And what do I get back?
100%.
What do I get back? Thank you. And that's it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you came out from nowhere. You had a really big mouth. You had a very loud voice. And this is what I really liked about you. I'm like, this guy's doing shit. And I'm like, I can name names. And I'm like, watch this guy. He's not doing small things. He's going to come up someday to a different level. And like, just because of I believed in your model from day one. I was like, yeah, round robin, people want more matches. Because single elim, yes, it's good. But for beginners,
Sport.
Sucks ass, man.
Yeah, losing $100
sucks
in your
donkey's
first
balls,
match.
man.
Yeah.
You're losing.
Especially if you want them to travel for a tournament.
You
like
want them to
5 hours.
travel, and you want them to continue competing.
Yeah.
You know, I have my own students. There's so many people want to quit or want to stop competing because of bad taste in the mouth.
Yeah.
It's just, but not in the mouth, literally. But they go there, they're ready, they make a mistake, they lose, and like, fuck this shit, I'm not going to do this anymore.
Yeah,
Your tournament is different. Okay, I lost, and then fourth one I win.
Yeah, it's happening.
And it's beautiful. Like, I got to win. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You are the reason Submission League, my small tournament, is round robin. Because
I appreciate that.
Well, it's your belief in it and my belief in it as well. Because when we started at my place, Submission League, I'm like, okay, David started from like few mats, and I'm not planning on going big promotion, but I can give 50, 60 people, each of them will have 4, 5, 6 matches, whatever. And they're going to have fun. And, dude, it's been successful, every one of them.
Yeah.
Like, every single tournament.
I typically try to tell people this. A lot of people don't typically believe it, but, man, you start off, right, like you did, like, in the gym. And I did it in the gym as well, like the first 2, I think. And you just see how it goes. And from there, you're like, oh, what do I need to do it a little better? And then after a year, it's a lot better than it was the first time. And if you keep working on the idea, it keeps getting better and better, right?
Yeah.
So the only difference between Grappling Industries and a lot of other tournaments is that, like, we're, like, completing our 10th year now. Most businesses, I think, like my understanding, most businesses go bankrupt after like 5 years or something. Like
Less.
Yeah, less. So as long as you keep working on it and you contribute to your idea and you invest in your idea, it's going to get bigger. It's going to outlast just people forgetting about it. So that's kind of like, I tell people all the time, you can do this too. It's not that complicated. You just have to keep working on it. Instead of spending the 2 weeks before the deadline working on your essay, you just keep working on the essay for years.
It's a story of any business. It's, I'm closing on 50. Red Star exists, 13, 14 years now, right?
Yeah.
We started very slow. I started from my line of credit, 10 grand, filled it up, bought, sold, made. My first batch, the first batch of geese came in, all the sleeves were up to here. Like middle fingers.
No shit.
Yeah, it was a batch of 200 pieces, and my wife, me, and my father-in-law, we had to readjust ourselves those 400 sleeves because it's 200 pieces, right?
Yeah.
So things like this, you learn on mistakes. But if you want to be an entrepreneur and you're afraid of adversities, and if any small adversity or big adversity or problem, whatever you want to call it, slows you down mentally, dude, just get 9-to-5 job, chill out, relax, and don't fucking complain that this guy is driving Mercedes and you driving fucking Corolla on a lease. That's the difference.
So I don't know if you remember, but on the Ontario Jiu-Jitsu Facebook group, there was a really long time ago, where people were really attacking me for like 2 weeks. In my head, it's called the Purge.
You've been attacked 100 times. I can't count.
But there was this one time, I think it was like, I think Ryan Keller was the leader of it. And I like Ryan Keller a lot now.
Yeah,
like, this was a long time ago. So, yeah. But Ryan Keller was the leader of it. And there was a lot of other people like Mike Bryers and Carlos Rios and Kyle Stephenson. It's just like everyone was together and they were like bashing me down. And I just remember living in my parents' basement, having worked on this for like 2-3 years. And what do you want me to do? Do you want me to like go upstairs to the kitchen from the basement of my parents and be like, Mom, Dad, I'm not going to work on this company anymore. People on the internet said really mean things about me. They've made me want to quit. Yeah, think about it. Like, a lot of people do quit for shit like that, right? They're like, oh, the people on the internet don't like it. Man, okay, but someone's buying it, right? How about those people? Why are we not pleasing those people? So it's like, there's a fence, right? And there's a lot of people that don't like you, and there's a lot of people that do like you. Clearly, the people who like you are going to like you, and the people who don't like you, they're never going to like you. We have to work on the people on the fence, right? The people who are going to tip either way. Right. Let's just try to get them to tip our way, right?
That's right. It's how many emails and face-to-face questions I've got from people, hey, what does it take to, I want to start my own gi brand.
Fuck.
Yeah. Listen, I'm like, okay, no problem. So there are a bunch of questions you have to ask yourself. Number one, are you ready to deal with Pakistan? Which means, hello, my friend, I hope you're in good health. I have the best quality product for the best price for you. And the best price, and you're gonna get it tomorrow, and this kind of stuff. That's number one. Number two, do you have a budget? These days, you need a budget. Look at, and I'm like, Kings Canada and, Hyperfly, they jumped in a few years ago in here. They have gigantic budgets. Like I can't even compare my budget with them because, my Red Star not went down completely, but slowed down quite a bit because of my gym. Just my concentration went the other way. It's the question comes in all the time. What does it take? I'm like, money? Forget about money. Forget about designs. Forget about quality of geese. Forget about all this. Number one thing is your commitment, your time, and your willingness to do it 24/7. This is, I've counted probably thousands of hours on Skype communicating with Pakistan and China. And I'm talking about, hey, listen, here you sent me this. See this line? See it's crooked? No, it's straight. No, it's wavy. See, it's wavy. No, it's straight. And it's taking, hour and a half to explain to this dude that this line is not straight. See the liner? That's a straight line. This is not straight. No, my friend, it's straight. Just a little bit off, plus, minus. I'm like, so this is patience and 24/7 commitment. This is number one. And push. That's all it is. And believe in your product. Like you believed in your brand since day one. And you gave
there was
everyone
a lot of belief. A lot of belief and like creation of hype that you don't know is there or not there yet. To touch on your points about Pakistan and China, like so my medals come from China clearly. I've been really so lucky that the company that we worked with first in China is still the same company that we still work with today.
That's good.
So we've been working with the same metal company, I think, for 8 of the 10 years. So we've been really lucky with that, and the fact that they seem to have 99% good English. Because like you said, it's like, hey, are you in good health? Like my metal manufacturer asked me like 3 weeks ago if I wanted masks and how many masks I wanted, and but they only sell a minimum of 10,000 at a time.
Yeah, I inquired about that too. I'm like, no, I'm not buying 10,000 or 5,000.
Yeah, so I almost bought like 25,000 masks and like made a contribution to Canada, but I decided against it at the time. I don't know how long we'll be out of business for either. So, but yeah, that's absolutely it. Like, people think that, I'll just go on Alibaba and I'll find the one that makes the most sense. Nah, dude, no. I remember a long time ago, I went on that site, Fiverr.
Yeah.
Because my designer started getting slower. So we went on Fiverr. We tried to find a designer to make our posters. And, man, it was just like email after email. Like you were saying, like, I don't really like this. This isn't what we explained that we wanted. And then they would send it back the way we want, but it wasn't that way either. So it would just be like that miscommunication between the two countries. It was a mess, yeah.
Dude, you found your look. You found your look. It took you a while, but I think
the posters actually was an interesting one. The posters were always like a different poster. It was never the same branding or anything like that. It was just completely random posters, and the posters looked good until one day I was talking to the guys at Smooth Comp, and they were saying, like, have you ever noticed the UFC posters are always the same? And I didn't know what he was talking about, but then he showed me an example where he took like 20 UFC posters and had an arrow pointing to where the logo was and an arrow pointing to where the rest of the information was. And he was absolutely correct. So what we did was we got rid of our unique posters and we went down this branded, more cookie cutter version.
Very important.
But by doing it, now when you see the poster, you're like, that's a Grappling Industries poster.
Yeah, very important.
Like,
that's very important.
Yeah. And like IBJJF doesn't have a poster, right? Like they have like their logo, IBJJF, like New York Open or whatever.
They do have brand. They do have visual branding. They have a very good look. They were. I'd say they were the first ones that nailed visual branding. Fine. Some people might disagree with not enough graphic or whatever. I think it's very clean. I think it works for them, and I think it's very recognizable. Same thing with you. First few years, you were like all over the place. Besides the logo, and then you got this collage style CD with a couple of grapplers in the middle, superimposed, with filtering on it, and I'm like, okay, finally, like this is grappling. And now you go to your website, and every CD is different but the same.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. I can just. Before Jiu-Jitsu, I've been in marketing for 17 years. I've been designer, creative director, so I get that stuff very well. And I was always like, Aguzzi, come on, man. Like, dude, your podium in Toronto, I hated you for that.
The podium? Yeah.
Do you remember that one? The narrow, fucking weird shape thing?
Yeah,
You were so proud of it, I remember. But I'm like, okay, you should have done it bigger at least. People people standing like this on it. I remember.
Hey man, it's one of those things that you gotta commit to yourself to like 3 or 4 times before you get it right. Like now I would say like the West Coast trailer, and this is being fixed during COVID, but we have this really big backdrop, kind of like the size of the backdrop at the Toronto event, but a Grappling Industries one. And much bigger, is much nicer. We have big boxes. Everything looks properly branded. But to touch on your point about the branding as well and the marketing, I don't know if you remember, but at the beginning it was called Montreal Grappling.
No,
and the Toronto events were called Toronto Grappling.
I didn't even know that.
So the event that you sponsored was called the Montreal Grappling Grand Prix, and the first one that I had. Yeah, yes. The one in Toronto was called the Toronto Grappling Grand Prix.
That's right.
At the Hershey Center, Mississauga.
That's right.
And then someone was like, listen, you're just going to keep going around naming this like the city and grappling. What's the name of the company? I was like, oh, the name of the company is like the City Grappling, whatever. They're like, no, you need a name of the brand. What are you going to do? Have like a website, grappling.com, which you don't even own, first of all. And then like you're just going to have all these different names. It's too confusing. You need a brand name. And that's when Grappling Industries was produced.
Who was helping you out those days? You can give her a shout out.
Yeah, so that's how I went from like Toronto Grappling or Montreal Grappling to like Grappling Industries, like a proper brand, and then it just become Grappling Industries, the name of the city. So Grappling Industries Toronto, Grappling Industries New York.
Nice.
So that way it really cleaned up the branding. That was a really important first lesson in branding. It really simplified things, to be honest.
Okay, let's go big. What do you see yourself in 5 years? Not you. I'm not talking about you personally. Talking about your brand.
The brand. So I think in 5 years we will have done something in Asia, something in Africa, and most likely something in South America. It's hard to know, right? Like the bigger it gets as well, the more it's easier to be content with stopping the expansions, right? Except I'm so eager to be better than the IBJJF or like bigger that I need to go to these places as well.
I don't see you slowing down.
Yeah. The problem is, as well as Asia gets tricky when you look at the number of small countries that are involved. Like right now, the Asian Jiu-Jitsu Federation does shows in Taiwan and Singapore and Japan, and it's like really not well organized between all these countries, and the production doesn't look that good. And sometimes it's in a mall, sometimes it's in a gym, sometimes it's in a venue. Like there is no consensus of a repeating brand, right? Same thing in Africa, where you're seeing the AJP now. They're trying to do North Africa and Morocco. They're trying to think of stuff to do, but there's just not enough money there. One thing I've been saying for a long time is I really think, and like we said it earlier in this podcast, is like Grappling Industries does a great job with white belts and blue belts. And it's okay that IBJJF can attract the blacks and browns, because once you grab all the whites and blue belts in the world, you really control a lot of them. I think the goal for us is to increase those numbers of white belts and blue belts to the point that it's completely dividing between Grappling Industries and IBJJF. There's so many competitors you can fit into a tournament that right now what we're looking to do is just increase the size of our own tournament. And I've been saying that for a while. A lot of people ask me, David, why don't you do merch yet? Naga does merch. New Breed does merch. IBJJF is starting to play with merch. Like you just talked about it, man. Merch is fucking tricky. Gis are tricky. T-shirts, rash guards, hats, they're tricky, Designing that stuff is tricky. Sampling it is tricky. And then distributing it and marketing it throughout the world.
I don't think you need to do this. Who's telling you? I don't think you need to do this.
But that's the thing. Naga still makes money from merch.
You're not a merchandise company. You're a company of producing grappling events.
I think the argument there is that a lot of people think that since we own the tournament, we also own the stalls at the tournament. So we could put our own stall with our own souvenir T-shirt and hats, and people will most likely buy it like they do at Naga, where the kids buy the Flame rash guard and the Flame shorts by the parents, right? And that's what I'm saying. I don't want to do that. I don't want to be merch. I want to improve at what we're already great at, which is a grappling tournament. So if our tournament in a particular city has 200, I want it to reach 500. I don't want to introduce T-shirts to it. I want to introduce getting it from 200 to 300 to 400 to 500. I think that's what's more important. I think once brands start, or like brand like Naga or New Breed in the States, once they start looking at merch, they start losing thought about increasing their numbers. And then those brands start decreasing numbers, and the numbers start going back to the brands that are focusing on the numbers.
I think it can be simple. I think it can be simplified. You can always do merch, but you ordered. You and I talked about it years ago, like when you wanted to order like 2,000 T-shirts or something like that, and you can have your booth. Is it worth doing this for you?
Yeah, that's the tricky part too. Is like having to buy the amount of inventory to also provide to like the number of cities I have. It's a huge down payment, and we might be able to afford it now that we're at the size. But again, it's hard to say will people like this souvenir T-shirt, you know?
Yeah.
Especially where IBJJF does it, where you sign up, you get a free T-shirt, right?
Yeah, you get a shirt. Yeah.
You realize, like, everyone should realize, like, this is why the IBJJF price costs more and more. Is like you need to. They're giving you stuff on top of it. They're putting that into your price tag, right?
But you're not very low yourself anymore.
What?
You're not very low on the price, on the cost of registration. You're not that low either.
We're still much lower than IBJJF.
Well, yeah, IBJJF is ridiculous. Okay, yeah, fine.
We're still much lower than
I'm comparing. You're right. IBJJF 120 US hurts.
Yeah, so Naga is also the same, 115, 120 US, and the UA Jiu-Jitsu tournament is still more expensive. So of the four tournaments, the four biggest tournaments in the world, we're the fourth least. We're the least expensive of them.
What are you on average? What are you on average right now?
The average right now is like 80 for the early bird and 105 for late registration. Okay. I think the average last year was $91 a registration.
Okay.
And spectators 15. Some people argue that being a little high. IBJJF is 15 across the board, except for 5 or 6 cities where they don't charge a spectator amount. But for the bulk of them, they actually charge 15. I can tell you, in New York, they charge 20. So, so it's hard to say, because some people say, "Oh, they didn't charge me at IBJJF." Well, you went to the wrong IBJJF. You know, you went to a very small IBJJF where they couldn't charge you.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of steps in front of us. So that's why it's still fun, because there's still a lot of milestones to reach. It's just like, when will we reach them, and what will be the process of it striking us that we need to do this, and this to reach that milestone. It's just it's those clicks in your mind that make you get there, right?
Yeah.
I mean, one day you're not in Australia, the next day you're in Australia. What occurred in that part, right?
Next day you're in Russia.
Yeah, I mean, it's very possible that one day we're going to end up in the western part of Russia.
I'm going to make your head twist about this one day.
So Russia and Brazil are the two places that my fiance wants me to ask her for permission before I do them, even though I've never asked her for permission to do anything.
Why permission? What about Russia? Hey, man, you go with me. You're protected over there, buddy.
You know how it is, like, in the Western world, like in North America, we have this thing against, like, about the things that we don't know, right? Like, you know, American culture, North American culture. I'm Canadian, but I just refer to it as the American culture because the U.S. is so big in North America.
Yeah.
That, like, you know, there's this thought of, like, oh, the Russians are bad people. Oh, Brazil is shady. Oh, this or that. Like, clearly it's not true. Clearly, like, having traveled the world now a couple of times, and, I spent, 4 weeks in Africa as well last year. In East Africa, like, having traveled around the world, I understand, like, people are the same everywhere. That's the fact of it. Yeah. Whatever you read on the media is just not true.
It's not true.
I mean, there's going to be great Russians. Like, you're a great Russian. I mean,
Yeah.
what's wrong? You know, and I've met great Brazilians. We've all met great Brazilians. We've all met shitty Brazilians as well. We've all met you probably met shitty Russians as well, right?
It's such a stupid thing, stupid way of thinking. There's somebody who's that national. It's number one, it's extremely racist. Number two,
Yeah.
okay, forget about racism even. It's so ignorant and it's just stupid to think like this.
Yeah.
You go to Russia, dude. Like every single person who went to Russia, ask them what was their experience. Every
Yeah, but
person.
that's the thing. Like, is it as simple in Russia as it is in Canada to register a business? Is it as easy to get the lawyer to help you with it? Are you going to be billed the same? You know, this is where people start to think that they're going to be fucked over or something. I don't think it is.
I will tell you this. No, it's not as smooth.
Yeah.
It's easy enough if you accept that you have to go through certain steps.
Sure.
And I'm not talking about mafia. They think and. You know,
no,
yeah,
exactly.
It's a bureaucracy. Yes, you have to go through certain steps of legality. Like you have to register here, you have to register here, you have to register here, you have to register here. Yes, maybe you have to shake a hand with somebody. You know, maybe. But no, it's people are running the tournaments there. Brazilian guys running, JJIF over there.
Someone said to me, like, how about like you go to Russia, you book the venue, you get to the venue with your stuff, and then the venue's like, oh, you know, it's an extra $1,000. In my head, I don't believe in this type of stuff because, you know, there's this consensual business dealings, right?
No, this doesn't exist anymore. That's not 90s when country was ran by literally organized crime. We live in more civilized society over there, and Moscow. What people don't understand. Moscow is 3/4 of Canada in population. It's just Moscow City is size of LA. It's a 20 million people. Absolutely modern, most modern city. One of the most modern and most expensive cities in the world. Yeah. You have poor, you have middle, you have extremely rich people. But when you talk about normal guys like me, like middle class, it's fine. You go and you talk to people, you organize it. Yes, you put deposit, you do this, you do that, and most of the time it's fine. Here and there you'll meet a dick. What about Canada? You're not gonna meet a dick every time. Yeah, here and there absolutely. You're gonna meet a dick. You know, you're gonna meet a fucking asshole here and there, and you're gonna hit the bureaucracy wall. Your examples about our sport.
Well, that's the thing. Like I've been to a venue in Oregon, which is as liberal as it gets, right? Like democratic, and they didn't even know that we were supposed to be there. Like they didn't have our contract. They didn't have anything saved.
See, there you go.
And
that's United States.
They're like, who are you guys? I'm like, man, I have a contract to be setting up tonight for an event tomorrow that like 500-600 people are coming to. Like, what are you talking about? Who am I? I mean, I just got off a fucking plane from Eastern Canada. I flew across Canada to Vancouver and then flew to Portland. I mean, what do you mean? Who the fuck am I? Who the fuck are you, man? Why the fuck are people playing badminton where I'm supposed to be setting up a jiu-jitsu tournament?
Are you serious? Did it happen to you?
No, this happened. This was our first ever Portland tournament. Since then, we've met this Jewish like community center in Portland who have been great to work with and like has a really nice venue. So that's cleaned it up. But like I mean, the first event, like we got there and it was like, oh, like we don't have a contract for you guys and stuff. It's like, man, I have it on me. You know, I've learned my lesson to bring the contract with me to venues. So that's the thing. It happens in the States. I mean, or am I going to say, oh, the States is a shady place, you know, because it happened at one venue in one city?
Exactly. Yeah. What we were just talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
You can hit the wall anywhere, but it's what I tell you this: Russia is booming. BJJ scene, grappling scene is absolutely booming over there.
No, I believe so.
It always has been judo, wrestling, and sambo. Those are the sports of the country. Now BJJ came in about 10 years ago, and trust me, man, those guys, you bring top-level competitors to those guys, they're going to rip you apart.
This is what you're going to do. You're going to start sending me competitors lists in the middle of the night when I'm sleeping.
Yeah, I will.
Like the Scott Bacon strategy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Pictures of the medals and stuff.
Like I walked in there first day last year, and I got invited I was looking through, I think through Facebook or Instagram or something, and somebody invited me. Oh, come over to our class. You're a black belt. You can teach. I'm like, all right, I'll come in. I can teach. I'll teach a class. Okay, I taught a class. I taught in Russian first time in my life. It was really awkward too. Like I don't know terminology. I don't know anything, and here and there I start speaking English. People looking at me like I'm some kind of moron, and like some people think, who is this guy showing off with his English, and I'm like, I don't give a fuck about it, and then I start rolling. All right, rolling time came in. I'm in decent shape. My elbows was hurting those days, after 2018, 9 tournaments, and I'm like, I start rolling. Blue belt catches me with triangle. Bam! No problem. And I'm like, holy shit, they don't care here. It's like, they respect you, but if you roll with them, they don't give a fuck what belt are you, age you are, doesn't matter. They're not going to crank it, they're not going to break your arm, they're not going to do anything like this. They have respect for that because of the culture of the sports. They know what it is. They know you're not supposed to injure people, right? But I'm rolling with white belt. This guy is just not letting me go. He's going crazy. And then I'm like, dude, like, after the roll, like, I didn't give him anything. Like, it was fine. I'm like, how's it going? Yeah, I'm like, good. I'm like, you used to be a wrestler. He's like, yeah, I'm master of sport and freestyle. Master of sport is black belt. And I'm like, how come you're wearing white belt? You're not supposed to be wearing white belt. And the crowd over there, like, literally 20% of those guys, former sambo, judo, or wrestlers, right? Yep. And the culture of the sport and the culture of upbringing in the sport is huge over there. And you're bringing BJJ, more tournaments and more. The reason IBJJF is not doing very well, they're not adjusting their pricing model.
Yeah.
IBJJF in Warsaw, in Poland, the last year, they did $50 registration. And it was 300 people all of a sudden. Yeah. Or more. Well, Wadzinski, what's his name? Wadzinski?
Adam Wadzinski.
He's the number one Polish guy there, and he has a huge academy apparently. I don't know him personally. I just heard from friends in Russia, and they somehow they managed to do $50 registration, and that's how it got big. You know what 120 US for a Russian average middle class person? $120 US. I can live food wise 2-3 weeks.
No shit.
Yeah, like if I'm smart, if I don't drink booze, I can literally eat on this money for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Pension in Russia is on average 10,000-15,000 rubles, which is
is there like a
$200-300 a month.
Is there like a minimum wage or anything like that?
No, there is no minimum wage. No, over there, no.
Right. So then, okay. Yeah, so that seems to be like the issue. Like, and I think it's something we've discussed for Europe as well when we get back, is just completely lowering the cost. Because the thing is, like, when we expanded to Europe, we didn't understand that, like, for example, a lot of Western Europe or like places like UK and France, they only get paid once a month, right? Like at the end of the month, they get paid
once a month.
So that was confusing to me in the first place. Oh, you only get paid once a month, and then you have to survive on it for the month. Like, clearly that wouldn't work in the US, for example, or in Canada. Not yet, at least, without some difference. And then the price there as well, like, they don't make as much money. Their value of like the pound or the euro is a little increased, higher than the Canadian dollar for sure, much higher than the Australian dollar, that's for sure as well. So it's come up to our attention that, like, when we first expanded to Europe and we had lower price points, the shows had very big numbers automatically. So that's something that we're thinking about as well, and we're thinking about in the US as well, to be honest as well. Where's the point of lowering the price where you can still do even more business at the higher price? I can understand, like, IBJJF not wanting to lower their price for Worlds or Euros or Pans or Masters Worlds, because everyone's going to go anyway. So they can charge you $120, or they can even charge you $150. You have the fear of missing out, the FOMO, right? Whereas if a normal tournament like myself comes into Salt Lake City and I say $150 for a registration, they're going to be like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
That's kind of a lot of money. But if I can sell that tournament now at $60 or $50 and it produces 500 people compared to 100 people the other way, then I make more money at a lower price point than I did at a higher price point per
It's
competitor.
a lot more work if you think about it. I'm not the one who tell you, 300 people tournament versus 500 people tournament. My understanding, it's way more work because you have way more matches this way.
Yeah, it is.
But at the end, you're bringing way bigger crowd to yourself as well.
But that's the thing too. Like at the beginning when you're holding tournaments, you want to run the tournament as fast and smooth as possible.
That's the most important thing.
It's almost like you do all this work to have this tournament, and then it's the day of the tournament, and you can't wait to be gone from the tournament. You know what I mean? That's the way promoters think. Yeah. And I began to think that if we're going to do all this work to get to this tournament, don't we want to spend the entire day at this tournament? Like in a way, so we're starting to apply that logic to Europe, and like seeing how it goes in Europe, I kind of want to bring it to the US as well, where maybe like at $80, maybe at $60 I could produce more sales than at $80. It might last two hours longer, but I'm not going to do anything that day anyways, right? Like the day is for a tournament, and then I'm going to go back to a hotel room, so I might as well be at the tournament for 2 hours longer if I can make more money. And people would be happier because they spent less money, right? So, I mean, that's something tricky because
as long as you keep yourself honest to this thing in the way that, 2-3 extra hours, and you cope with this just fine, and not start disassembling mats in the middle of the matches, then it's fine, because those things are still leftovers even from Toronto tournaments when there's still matches and you guys disassembling mats, just because the tournament went for so long and all of you won't just get on a freaking truck and go back home, because people don't understand how much work it involves. And I've never run your tournament. I've never ran Next Gen. I don't understand on hand, like face to face, hand to hand, how it's done. I've done my tiny little tournaments, and I want it to be over.
Yeah.
When the time comes, I'm like last few matches, and you're just sitting there. It's like, when will they beat each other, and it's like, and be gone, And that's pathetic to think like this, because it's okay. We start at 10, and we finish at 4 p.m.
Yeah.
And it's 2 mats. And it's like, it's comparing to yours or a BGGF or other ones. It's like, it's absolutely pathetic. But even on a small scale, for me, I'm like, I want to go home. I don't understand how you guys feel on a bigger scale.
So it gets even trickier depending on when the setup times are, because sometimes you're lucky and you have the 5 to 8 p.m. the night before setup times. Then in Maryland, where some of our biggest tournaments are, right out of DC, the setups are at midnight the night before.
Jesus
so we're
Christ.
setting up from midnight until 2:30 a.m., 3 a.m. A place like Saratoga, Albany, our setups are at 4 a.m. in the morning.
Jesus
so
Christ.
we set up from 4 to 7 a.m., then we open up the doors and we run a tournament. So essentially we're at the tournament for a lot longer than people actually think we're there for.
No, it's a lot of work. People don't get it. It's a lot of work.
Yeah, like the setup actually, and then the morning of the tournament, like since we open up at like 7:30, like, and we're usually staying within 10 minutes away, you have to wake up at 6 or something like that. So the whole thing is just like, you're not running on a lot of sleep, you're not feeling well, you're kind of tired, you've got to control this team, you've got to answer a ridiculous number of questions from people who didn't read the online website page. And if there's anything I can get, like, sneak in this
including me.
This chat,
I'm guilty
it's
of
like,
that.
Man, if you're going to sign up for a jiu-jitsu tournament, read the website, please. Read the website event page.
Nobody reads it. One thing I learned many years ago in being in web design, there is one really good book that I recommend to every single person. It's called Don't Make Me Think.
Yeah.
And it's literally about usability on the web, social, etc. I think they release new version these days. It's literally don't make me think. We're all lazy. We don't read. We have jobs. We have kids that's running around here and throwing freaking balls at you and guns shooting at my head.
Yep.
You're going to experience that very soon. Yeah, you will. And, so, yeah, you're absolutely right. It's millions of questions, millions of little preparation stuff and hate mails and, and hopefully everything goes smoothly with insurance and the venue. Ugh, it's a lot of work, man.
Yeah, it's just like I remember the last New York tournament in Manhattan we ever ran. Like this guy came up to me at 7:30 in the morning and he was asking about his daughter who he couldn't find a division for her. And like I knew that there was probably no division for her. You couldn't find it yourself. Clearly, it doesn't exist. It says on the website event page what happens if that's the case. So I was like, "Hey, did you read the website event page just so I know?" He's like, "Why?" I'm like, "I just want to know if you read the website event page." He's like, "What are you getting at?" And he's like getting angry, right? It's like, "What are you getting at?" I'm like, "I was just wondering if you read the website event page because it says what to do in this case." He's like, "Oh, I read it." I'm like, "So then why don't you know what's happening right now?" It's like 7:30 in the morning, and I'm yelling in Manhattan, and like my assistant at the tournament had to just like nudge me to be in a better mood. I'm like, the guy's a fucking liar. He's telling me he read it. He didn't read shit. And
you met personally and through emails probably hundreds of people like this.
Yeah. Like especially at the COVID tournaments, like I call them the COVID tournaments, like the Arnold tournament, like where the governor is like, "Oh, the trade show is cut down," or the week after in the UK where COVID is becoming a thing and Donald Trump has disallowed travel from mainland Europe except for the UK. Like the number of emails that came in during COVID for those events, and especially after we started canceling events, the number of emails that came in were just unproportionate. I think it was like, I don't know,
how many people is Arnold's?
At the Arnold's, so signed up was 1175, but after cancellations, I think it was like 950.
That's big.
Because like over 200 people pulled out because they didn't want to be in the atmosphere in case something was serious.
And Arnold comes over and talks to people, yeah.
No, Arnold was there.
Yeah, nice, man.
Yeah, like the year before, like so every year he has a tradition of walking around on our mats with his shoes on as well. It is what it is.
He's Arnold.
But yeah, exactly. But last year we got him to like not referee, but like raise winners' hands of like kids matches as well. So that was pretty cool.
And he was game, eh? He was totally cool with that.
Yeah, no, he's totally cool. He's come. Like we've been doing the jiu-jitsu part of the Arnolds for 3 years now. First it was the Gracies, then it was Naga, then it was the Gracies again, and now it's Grappling Industries. And I'm pretty sure I have the deal for life, pretty much. Like
how
this
did you
past
end up
one.
getting him?
What?
Okay, how did you end up getting him? Like just tell briefly, like, what's the story? Like, how did you end up getting Arnold Schwarzenegger to be in a tournament and getting Grappling Industry, beating everyone else,
Marcos Flores, who's the director of Grappling Industries US, he was moving to Columbus from Florida with his family, and he met someone at the gym, the head instructor at the gym, Dave Freetag. He runs a GF team in Grove City, Ohio. Mm-hmm. He's a police officer. He teaches like other police officers as well, like car mobility and stuff like this. He introduced Marcos and me to a guy named Troy, who's a bigger name police officer in Ohio. And it turns out he worked at the Ohio at the Arnold Sports Festival with Arnold and Bob Emery. Bob is the guy who actually is the promoter of the Arnold Sports Festival. Arnold is the face, right? So he was like, "Hey, Bob, there's these guys. They run amazing grappling tournaments. I think it would be great to have them." And Bob, this is a true story. They were actually about to sign a deal with the UAE Jiu-Jitsu Federation. And the UAE had already put on their website the Columbus, Ohio tournament for that weekend, and they were just waiting to have the paper signed so they could call it the Arnolds. And Troy and Bob went to Marcos and me, and he's like, I kind of like working with you guys because you guys are like grassroots but American You know, and I'm like thinking in my head, I'm not fucking American, I'm Canadian. but they liked the idea that we were from the area where the UAE guys, they don't really have any locals working for them. They're completely from the UAE in a way. And they were like, "Would you like to do the tournament?" They offered us this split of a deal that wasn't that great for the first year, but we wanted just to get our foot in. I didn't think anything of the tournament. It turned out to be like 750 competitors, and Arnold came for like an hour, and Randy Couture was there for an hour, Forrest Griffin, just a bunch of other guys, Shoney Carter. We had 150 people at Gordon Ryan's seminar the next day. I got my black belt that day, actually.
Yeah, that's right. I remember. Yeah.
Yeah, and then from there, like every year, the percentage has gotten better for us. But we have just this camaraderie, you know. Like they're kind of loyal to us because their tournament, the Arnold tournament, had been dropping for years. Like the year before us, I don't remember who promoted. I remember who promoted. I just don't want to use his name because I don't like the guy. But he promoted like the Arnold tournament. Only 125 people came to the tournament. First year we were there, 700 people came. And then this past year, between the 1150 dropping to 950, it still made it the biggest Ohio tournament ever. And a funny thing about the Arnolds too is like I went to that tournament when I was 15 years old. Like I drove to Ottawa. I took a bus, a Greyhound to Ottawa. I met up with the guys. Remember the Jim Ronin mixed martial arts? Yeah. So I met up with the guys at Ronin. Kareem Bryan. You remember Kareem Bryan?
I know the name. I don't know him.
Big African guy, maybe like 400 pounds. He fought in ADCC.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So I went with him and these other guys from Ottawa. We drove down to Columbus, Ohio. I got to Ohio. I cut 17 pounds, fought in this tournament, won the tournament. I had like 8 or 9 matches. I won like this belt. I think it's at my parents' home now. And like 15, 16 years later, you know, full circle, I'm not competing in it. I'm actually running it, you know. So one day, like Helsing Gracie's giving me a belt, and the next day I'm running the tournament. So it's interesting how that came full circle.
Good for you, man. Know.
Because at the time when I was like 15, it had been the biggest jiu-jitsu tournament I had ever been to. It was like really impressive. That day, actually, there was a pro division, which is only like 4 to 8 athletes. But I remember Marcelo Garcia beating Wagner Fabiano.
Really?
Yeah, and I think that's on the internet, and you can find highlights of the matches in Marcelo's highlight videos. Like he keeps X-guard single legging Wagner.
I know the video because I think maybe.
And Wagner's such a big name because, like, clearly, like Wagner was so instrumental in Canada, like starting off in Montreal, then going to Toronto, BJJ, and Novayan, like becoming big in Canada.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's interesting how that whole thing came together. To be honest.
Look at you! Listen, so when did you start jiu-jitsu?
I was like 12 or 13. My brother went to like a video store and brought home a VHS of a UFC, and I watched Guy Mesger versus Tito Ortiz, and Tito Ortiz like kicked his ass, and then like in the last minute of the last round or something like that, Guy Mesger caught him on a guillotine on a double leg and like tapped him out, and I couldn't believe like this guy got beaten up the entire fight, but he managed to wrap his arms around the guy's neck and tap him out or something like that, and I like a week later I was begging my parents to drop out of hockey and learn self-defense, and I went from self-defense to grappling to kickboxing to jiu-jitsu like instantly. And
so now tell me, why were you brown belt for 9 years?
Man, to be honest, I was just like leaving gyms, to be honest. There's this like idea that when you leave a gym, like the new professor isn't going to promote you for a very long time. They kind of like, before a professor wants to give you a brown belt or a black belt, they want to see you around for a very long time. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like clearly you're a professor now, you own your own gym. If a brown belt just showed up and trained with you for a year, are you going to give him a black belt even if you're friends with him? Like probably not.
I would, because I'm different. I don't have that old school mentality.
So I don't believe in that. You know, I don't believe in the whole like loyalty thing of like, oh, if I'm going to give someone a black belt, I want them to be under me for the rest of their life.
No.
Or I don't believe in the anti-creonte thing. Like, I don't think there's anything wrong with creonting. I don't think creonte is a good word for it. Sometimes we make changes based on certain things. I can tell you I got my blue belt and purple belt from the same guy, Fabio, BTT. I had a big falling out with Fabio. I mean, I could go into that for hours. I don't think it's my fault. I think the guy did a lot of really sketchy things, and I don't want to talk about that stuff. But like,
Don't
like when I was younger, I thought like a lot of this was really not a good example for me as I was getting older. I was just beginning university as well, and I had Firas Sahabi in my corner anyways. So I thought just like the advice I was getting from this other side wasn't that great, and then it just like like I went to another gym and then like that person got like persuaded by Fabio, like that Fabio told him some stuff and they took it as truth. It wasn't really. So it would follow me around a little bit. I would meet some people. I would train at a gym, and then like after training at a gym for 5 years, like, and you're not seeing the talent rise up because the gym owner doesn't really care about it as much as you would think, and you keep changing location of the gym, then it's like, I don't really want to train here either. Like, it's more of a social club than it was like serious. You'd enter a tournament and you wouldn't have anyone to corner you, and you'd be like, So kind of like in the middle of my brown belt, I took like 2 years off. That's another thing as well. And even now, like as a black belt, I'm doing less and less jiu-jitsu, to be honest. I'm doing more and more business, and I'm finding other ways, like other hobbies as well that I can't do if I was doing jiu-jitsu all the time. Like for example, I'm trying to start to learn how to fly, how to fly planes, for example. That's a very expensive hobby, and it's a very time-consuming hobby as well. So I can't do it if I'm focusing just on jiu-jitsu. I don't have the aspirations to be like a black belt world champion or an MMA world champion. I like using my head and my brain, so that's persuaded from that. I guess it's just like old school traditions kept me as a brown for a very long time. I don't like that type of stuff in jiu-jitsu. I think it holds a lot of people back. I know not just I was held back for that. So it is what it is. I don't really care. A lot of people that get their brown belt and the only thing they can think about is their black belt. Oh, I'll be a black belt very soon. For me, it wasn't like that. For me, it was 7 years, first of all. So
okay.
Yeah, I had to wait 7 years. So the whole journey to black belt for me was like almost like 15, 16, 17 years, something like that.
Well, you still got recognized. You still got it, man. It's not a small accomplishment. You and I know it, and
like that's the thing. Like the average time for someone to receive a black belt is 0 because most people don't get a black belt. That's the fact.
That's a good point.
And then the next thing is like, listen, like there's a lot of black belts as well that they might be black belts in jiu-jitsu, but they've never contributed anything to jiu-jitsu. I like to have some type of ego in my head where at least what I've left for jiu-jitsu is bigger than what I could have done by myself.
This is, what's many students always ask me, like, what is the black belt? My take on black belt is few things. Number one, obviously, is a skill. You have to get there. Are you world champion? Can you beat Gordon Ryan? Can you beat anybody top guys in Canada? No, I can't. Am I not black belt? Fuck yeah, I'm black belt. You know why? Yep. Because I contributed to the sport. I participated in the tournament. I, most importantly, promote the sport, and I promote the lifestyle and good things out of it. Yep. What comes with the sport, the positive life lessons for kids program, for 18-year-old comes to me and he says, I want to learn how to fight. And I tell him, I'm going to teach you how not to fight. And he looks at me like, what the fuck are you talking about? I'm like, you'll get it one day. I'm going to teach you how not to fight. You won't need to fight. Things like this. You teach them how to be humble. You teach them, all sorts of lessons. You and I know, and many, many, many people, whoever will listen to this, they will know it as well. This is what black belt, and like you said, contribution to the sport is huge, especially these days when we're trying to grow this sport. But if you got a black belt and you just keep hitting yourself on the chest, fuck off, man. Honestly.
It's interesting too about how you get better at jiu-jitsu or better at mixed martial arts, and like the better you get, the less you want to show it off in public.
Yeah.
Like if you get into that guy at the bar who's like really getting pushy, it's like I don't want to fight this guy.
No, I don't.
I understand the consequences of the fight. I understand the law, and I don't want to do it. I don't want to be in trouble because of this guy. I don't want to hurt this guy. I don't want to break his arm. I don't want to kimura a guy in a bar and break his arm because there's no tapping in a bar.
Listen, so many times on my security teams when I used to run the nightclubs. It's like, guys, we don't fight. I can teach you how to hold a guy, and it's like most of the guys are martial artists, but here and there you just have a big head muscle guys, right? Yeah. And anytime something happens in the bar, it's those guys want to fight. They're like, let's go. I'm like, dude, you're becoming huge liability to me, to this club, to the owners of this club, and to yourself. You're fucking idiot. You're gonna get sued. We are gonna get sued. Like, and you don't know this guy might have a blade. And that's it. One swing of his arm with his blade, you're dead. Your parents are standing and crying above your grave. You're a stupid idiot. And I ran quite a few years security, and I think I've thrown one or two punches in my life. I swear to God. I fought a lot when I was young, but running security, it's basic jiu-jitsu holds. It's basic jiu-jitsu self-defense. This is what happens.
For sure. I worked as a bouncer as well.
My best thing,
clubs.
Listen, my best thing at clubs was always, hey, okay, you're tough enough? You want to go with me? Yeah. I'm like, yeah, absolutely. Let's go, man. Let's go outside. Let's go. You walk them outside. You go back inside the club, and you can see this guy screaming and yelling on the street. It's the best self-defense ever. I always teach.
I was a bouncer in clubs and even a strip club. So I think I bounced at like 4 or 5 different places. When I was like 18, 19 years old, and this was like my pinnacle shape. So I was about 140, 145 pounds, like cutting to 135. And, people would come up to me in the bar and they'd be like, you don't look like a bouncer. Like, so fucking small, right? And it's like, that says a lot, doesn't it? Yeah. Like, I won this job. Think about it.
Dude,
Do you want to find out why I'm a bouncer?
Yeah,
do you want to find out?
We worked, my last club was Park Lane here. And I had a guy, Israelis, formal, what's their special forces called?
Krav Maga.
The special forces in Israel called Amaz. I forgot what their name.
Yeah, I forgot that.
And he was their instructor. The size, he's like 140, 5'6", something like this. But the guy and another bouncer, I remember he stood good 6'6", something like this. Giant, freaking big black guy. And one day he said something, what are you going to do to me? Like if I go towards you. So the other Israeli guy, he was like Jean-Claude Van Damme in the 90s. He jumped and he almost kicked his nose. He did the spinner kick in front of his face. Like literally like so fast. We were all standing like this on the staircase. And it's like, yeah, this is what he's going to do to you. It was really cool to see, and I have
a story of George St. Pierre jumping off like the second floor at a club onto like someone because all the bouncers were running at the same place, and George was a bouncer for a very long time before he was like a superstar, and you just see him running off this like aspect of like the thing that overlooks the stage, and he jumped off of it onto the group of people to like jump into the bouncer versus crowd fight. So yeah, bar and club fights always don't make any sense.
I don't see JSP being a bouncer. He's such a nice guy.
Yeah, after being garbage man, he was a bouncer.
Oh, he was garbage man too. I didn't know that either.
Yeah, Gordon Ryan started as a garbage man as well. So
hey, Gordon Ryan. By the way, like, what did you think about Gordon Ryan? You met him. Like, what do you think about him? Like, what's your take on Gordon Ryan these days versus Keenan Cornelius and Gordon Ryan match?
No, like Gordon Ryan is the best no-gi grappler in the world, man. It's not even close.
Not even
Like
close.
he
Yeah.
really is the best no-gi grappler in the world. Like if he had a rematch with Felipe Pena, he would beat him now. If he had a no time limit match with Buchecha, he would tap Buchecha. Like he really is like the example of a jiu-jitsu full-time athlete. I think he just recently turned into a millionaire as well. Pretty impressive. I've worked with him a couple of times, like I think 2 super fights, 2 tournaments he competed in for free, and like a couple of seminars. Like he's really young. So that's the next thing I would say about him, besides him being the best in no-gi, is the guy that he is online is not the guy he is in person.
That's what it seems like.
A lot of people will tell you this. Like in person, he's kind of like a young, shy, antisocial sweetheart. Online, he's like a raging dick. Troll, angry.
Great thing to
will
hear.
represent the point of the argument without piss off the most number of people.
It works for him.
And it works, yeah, absolutely. Like I see a lot of like the 21-year-old self in him. You know what I mean?
I get such a kick of his posts.
He's making people want to watch him. He's making the amount of the purse go up.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's pretty much it. If you met him in person, you'd realize he's actually like, for example, when he gives a seminar and it's time for Q&A. Q&A might have been only labeled as 30 minutes. He will stay 2 hours to answer every fucking question if he has to, because it's really important to him. At a seminar, everyone gets their worth. Everyone has a great time. He'll roll with everyone at a seminar as well. He'll answer everyone's questions. He's in person. He's just much different than online. That's the problem. It's like who is Gordon? Like I hate Gordon, but then like if you meet him in person, you kind of like him.
No, I never had a bad feeling about him. Here and there he posted something about historical events. I'm like, Gordon, grow up a little,
Yep.
But overall, what he's doing right now, it's fine. I'm totally cool with this, and he'll grow up and. His views he's very intelligent. Taking his jiu-jitsu, you have to be intelligent person. And working with John Danaher, and I met John Danaher, the way he teaches, the way he speaks, especially in public, it's, you have to have some level of intelligence to be that person. And you're not a dumbass motherfucker. Look at his success, man. And look at the way he grapples. Look at the way it's such a methodical style of grappling.
So George St. Pierre was cornered by Danaher, or brought Danaher in to help him with his jiu-jitsu a long time ago, and then Danaher started working with Faraz a lot. I remember the first time I met Danaher, I went to New York when I was 14 years old to train in the Blue Basement for 3 days, and it was all Danaher classes. And in one corner of the room is all these black belts, and the other corner is all these MMA, UFC fighters, and the other corner is people like me just talking to whoever would talk to you because I'm not from the city. Yeah. And then in this other corner is this bald guy sleeping on the mats. And then the bald guy sleeping on the mats, gets up. He's like, "Oh, what's up?" Oh. And then he walks to the middle of the mat. And he's like, "Okay, guys, let's do it." And then all the Gracies look over and they walk over and they sit down in front of him. And everyone just listens to this guy who's just waking up from the corner of the mat. And this is my first ever Danaher story.
Wow!
And then he proceeded to teach for an hour, some of the most detailed jiu-jitsu I had seen in a long time. I haven't seen jiu-jitsu that detailed being instructed since Paul Scherner at Marcelo Marcias. Paul is pretty much the other head instructor at Marcelo beside Marcelo. Yeah. They used to have Bernardo Ferreira as well and Matthew Martinez and all that, but Paul is pretty much the guy who teaches the most number of classes at Marcelo's. He's super detailed as well, but the first time I ever got exposed to that detailed instruction of jiu-jitsu was Danaher. He had just woken up in the corner and just went out and taught all the Gracies, black belts, UFC fighters, and normal Joe Blows like me at the time jiu-jitsu, and it was super impressive.
I met John Danaher when Pat Cooligan ran Nomad, super.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, super seminars in Sudbury. So John Danaher came, and I kind of knew his name, but I was already black belt, and I kind of didn't know him. And then he was teaching 2 seminars I took with him, and each seminar 1 hour he was explaining and breaking down one technique.
Yep.
And I still remember it. I still have recording of it, and it was absolutely amazing. I was like, okay, this is how you really make people remember, and this is how you. For me, being an instructor, right? For me, being a coach, I took a lot out of it. Even though he was teaching the stuff that I already knew, and I taught similar way. Even somebody was next to me standing, and she's like, "Sounds familiar, Igor." He was teaching leg locks, obviously, and sounds familiar, Igor. And I'm like, "Yeah, but different." Like the way he was explaining was 100% better than me. It's like you have to give a credit to the man. Like he's absolutely amazing. You're absolutely right.
No, he's a very interesting guy. PhD, what is it, psychology or physiology or something from psychology.
I think he's in philosophy and something.
Yeah, philosophy. Yeah, PhD philosophy from New Zealand. But yeah, interesting guy.
Listen, Aguzzi, we're hitting 2 hours, even longer. It's 2:10 now.
Oh yeah, I'm ready to move on to the next task, my friend.
We agreed to 1.5 hours. I really appreciate you coming to my podcast. I'm a super beginner in this shit. And technically, like, I don't even have equipment to run this stuff. There were some problems with the stream. My internet.
It was a lot of fun, man. We have a lot of stories from a time that I remember quite well, because it was that whole era of what we were talking about was like where all the passion came from, like I had to get all my frustration out in Ontario and Quebec before I could go like expand throughout the world. So it's just like, for me, it was really fun to like reminisce the nostalgic memories of before the sanctioning days and these players in Ontario and just the way it all was. It's really fun, man. I really appreciate it.
It built your foundation. You took that foundation and you used it around the world, man.
Yeah.
And you and I are going to Russia. I'm going to kick your ass if you're not going to go to Russia with me.
We got to do it, man.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, David. Thanks a lot. I wish you
post-COVID.
I wish you nothing but the best. I truly do. I'm a big fan. And, you and I are straight-up shooters. If I don't like something you do, I tell you straight up.
Man, you've told me to my face several times at tournaments. And I remember even being at, like, a Jack Astor's after a tournament and you coming up to me at Jack Astor's and being like, the way, and you took a picture of it at the tournament. Like there was the medals were not on a medal table. The person giving out the medals had put the box on the floor, and you took a picture of it. You were so pissed off. You were yelling at me at night at Jack Astor's when we were watching the UFC, and I respect it. I respect it, to be honest. Those types of things have to be cleaned up. So I'm happy that I could get rid of that type of stuff in the first half of the career.
Good stuff,
now
man.
People don't have to be exposed to it, and I don't have to get yelled at around the world by other people, man. Like you.
Awesome. No, David, truly proud of you. You're one of those Canadians that, if people know Jiu-Jitsu, they should be proud of you, and they should be proud to have Grappling Industries originating in Montreal, and it's great.
I appreciate that, man.
You're doing great things, man. Keep going, keep doing it. You're GrapplingIndustries.com online. Yep. You're
Grappling Industries.
Grappling Industries
Instagram.
everywhere.
Yeah, Grappling Industries.
It's very simple
on Instagram,
to find
Grappling
you.
Industries on Facebook.
I strongly recommend all my students. When Grappling Industries comes to Toronto, I'm like, guys, register. It's an amazing experience. And I always say, yeah, you might find some organizational issues, like barriers are breaking up, but the experience of grappling you're gonna have is awesome. And I don't promote much at BJJF in Toronto. Like I always tell guys, I'm not gonna tell you if one of my students who pays me monthly fees and he literally is struggling for money and he wants to compete at BJJF, I'm like, go compete in the BJJF, but I'm not gonna push it because it's 160, 180 US or Canadian at the end.
So besides those like 5 or 6 massive IBJJFs, we're beginning to beat them in a lot of the regional types of events like that one. Like we beat them in Toronto, we beat them throughout Australia. We're beating them now throughout Europe, and we're beginning to beat them like in a lot more places. Like we've started to beat them in Boston, and New York, and DC. Once we're able to beat them on all the regional levels, then we'll be able to look at like the more prestigious tournaments they have that have the world champions in them. But it'll take a while, but I mean, just like the type of support that you're able to give us, like, and it's repeated by a lot of other coaches. Like that's how we got here. Just a lot of people being like, hey, these guys do kind of have a better product for white belts and blue belts. I'm going to send my students there. That's allowed us to get this far, man.
All right, buddy. All right, great
thank you
stuff.
so much, buddy.
Thanks for joining, and hey, I'll support you all the way, buddy.
Thank you so much, buddy.
All right. I'll speak to you, well, sometime.
Very soon, man.
Very soon.
We should continue to have this conversation about
We
Russia.
will. I'll invite you again, and maybe somebody else on the other side. And as soon as my equipment will get better, we'll have 3-way, 4-way conversations, and maybe a little
in Russian. Let's do it in Russian.
In Russia, we're doing it in Russian, man, for sure. And maybe
Right,
we should do the podcast, Jesse, you, Rohit, and Tony.
I just don't think a lot of people will care today about that. You know, like
people
it
do.
was a long time ago.
Dude, people do because the story is interesting.
Yeah.
If anybody's in jiu-jitsu past the blue belt, it's interesting to hear that stuff. It's interesting to, you know what Ricardo's doing these days, Valea? He's Amadile, right? He's doing he's picking up all the old stories and all the old matches, and he's putting it online. And I think it's very, very interesting what he's doing.
Are we still live?
Yeah, we're still live.
Oh, I was going to say I have him blocked on Facebook and I'm blocked on social media, so I don't even know what he's posting. To be honest,
well,
I stopped caring so much about what that person had to say, because every time anyone would try to accomplish anything, that person would be like, whatever, you know. It's not gonna, like, he was the first person I ever brought the idea of Grappling Industries to, and he said it wouldn't work, and I never forgot. And he did it several times. When I went to Flow Grappling, he said he would give me no money. He would give us the exposure for it. I mean, I don't need that type of stuff. And it never bettered. You know, I could never make it better with the guy. It was always like, I always felt like there was a chip on his shoulder, you know, like one day he's Grappler's Quest, the next day he's Five Grappling, the next day he's Flow Grappling. He'll go where the money is. He doesn't have that much loyalty to a project. Anytime he's ever started his own project, he's ran into the floor like Fight Shop or OSWI. Like, I mean, he clearly loves jiu-jitsu so much.
He does love jiu-jitsu, yeah.
Yeah, there's no denying he loves jiu-jitsu so much, and he knows so much about jiu-jitsu. It's just that me and him were not able to click, like, for example, how we just clicked over the last 2 hours. Like, there's none of that between me and Ricardo, for example. It doesn't work.
I hear you. I can see it, too.
He wants something different for jiu-jitsu than I want for jiu-jitsu, and that's understandable that we won't click. But yeah, that's
I hear you, buddy. Anyway, all good.
Awesome, man. I'm turning off the camera, bro.
All right. Us.
Thank you so much, man. Have a great day, eh?